Through most of his life, Frederick van der Zex liked to think that he was not a petty person. He met quite a lot of them during his life, and it gave him some comfort to think that he wasn't part of this awful group, but on the other hand, the sight of Comrade 4 scrambling around, trying to make sense of the recent news brought a smile to Mayo's face. Well, at least on the inside. Fred was brave, sure, but laughing at someone working for Ministry of Finance was a surefire way of getting taxed up to your eyeballs for unwarranted expression of joy, and so Fred only offered several concerned and comforting glances as the intimidating persona of the golden bureaucrat completely fell apart, and left behind only a confused man who had no idea what to do. And in the current situation, it was no wonder Comrade 4 was confused. For him, as part of Ministry of Finance, and for most citizens in general, the discovery of a still active brain of a saint generally meant the best of times. But because Comrade 4 was officially part of Ministry of Reality, for him and his entire office, it meant the worst of times. The result was that the shiny man and his copies ran around in all directions like headless chickens, muttering to themselves, trying to find a way to do both of their duties at once, without messing too much with the other.
No. This is all completely unexpected. We will have to get dampeners all over the city. But on the other hand, if we place too many of them, we won't be able to drop harvesters there and sell all the sorts to the people. Maybe we'll just try to alternate every other day. But no. We first need to know what the bloody thing is even thinking about right now.
And with that, entire battalion of Comrade 4s stormed out of the office, leaving Fred alone and somewhat baffled, at least until he realized that he too should probably go and check out this new cave-in his mine has uncovered to the north, if only to see if it won't cause him even more troubles. For a brief moment he was thinking about rifling through Comrade 4's belongings, but thought better of it. He was trying to convince himself he was not a petty person after all. Instead, he walked straight out of the Spartan office, but still could not resist the urge to slightly tilt the only one picture that was hanging on the wall. It showed just a bunch of coins, so it probably wasn't disrespectful or anything. And with that, giggling childishly under his breath, Fred left the Hive Tower and prepared for another bout of dealing with never-ending traffic, but just as he was getting atop of his bike, he heard a booming voice from across the street. "Avast ye, landlubber," a man said, waving a hook hand in Fred's direction. "Looks like me sea legs delivered me to me destination after all. Ye look like ye be the governor of this here port." Fred took one long look at the man, dressed in ornate frock coat, and wondered what exactly happened to him. He sported hooks instead of both hands, 2 peg legs and wore 2 eye patches, which meant that whatever, or wherever, his sea legs were, they were most certainly quite impressive to allow him to find his way anywhere. And then, just as he was preparing to wave this crazy old man away, something stirred in the back of his head. "Wait a moment, I've seen you before. Sir? On the telly? Aren't you the Lord Admiral?" "Arr, your eyes do not deceive ye, scallywag. This be me, the greatest sailor who ever graced this world in the flesh." "It's an honor to meet you, sir," Fred said with genuine respect. "But pardon my asking, what brings Lord Admiral of Imperial Navy here?" The sailor laughed in a voice that was both booming and raspy and replied, "'Tis be me duty to inspect every single port in this great empire of ours, governor. You built one, so I came along to see for myself if this here cove can be used as something more than just a drop-off for merchants, and ye can only imagine my surprise when I learned I can even sail my flagship almost all the way to the shore. This here be a good place for a proper pirate haven, governor, so I be thinking me and me lads will be staying for a while." "Wait. You mean you brought INS so much for subtlety here?" Fred asked, his eyes gleaming with childish enthusiasm. "Aye, she be standing at anchor in your dockyard, governor, though I have to say ye may need to get some amenities there. We made port, and instead of ram and winches we just saw a train and a bunch of box and ice cube factories. Almost made me think to raise the anchor and sag this pathetic port town, but then some dockwalker lady directed me here, and even said you have a proper leisure district." Fred stopped dead in his tracks for a second, thinking intensively. At one hand, rowdy drunken sailors from Lord Admiral's flagship could probably cause more damage to his town than a full-blown earthquake. But on the other, no one tossed tips around like drunken sailors. And, because it was the Empire, the mathematics of this decision really was simple. We do have one indeed, fresh and unspoiled, Lord Admiral, Fred said with a gleaming smile, receiving equally happy, but far less gleaming, in return. Magnificent! If you will be so kind as to direct me and me lads there. We've been at sea for at least 2 days now, and we need to wash away the taste of salt from our mouths. Any reason good enough, eh? Fred asked rhetorically. I do have some business to attend to, but can't refuse someone of your reputation, sir. Follow me. Grand. Hear it, boys? Row like your life depended on it, for your rum certainly does. And with that, a massive rowboat capable of holding well over 100 people rolled down the street. It had wheels attached to it to make it possible to move on land, but it was clearly only propelled by a bunch of sailors who, very enthusiastically, pushed it forward with oars. Fred wanted to ask about it, but who was he to judge? If naval boys and girls wanted to have their fun, it was not up to him to tell them how to do it. Instead, he joined Lord Admiral on the massive street boat and asked what his plans were after he got his drink. "'Tis be a fancy place you have here, Governor, so methinks we're gonna stay and call some more of the fleet. We saw a lot of the void fog on our way here, so you and your landlubber peasants will surely appreciate some protection, right?" Did something happen? I thought Ministry of Postmortem dealt with the void fog long ago. Aye, that they did. The ghost ships of long-dead sailors may still roam the waves, but they will never dare to plunder Imperial ports or ships. They know they'll only get hired for their troubles, and believe ye me, Governor, these old-fashioned lads would rather die again and again than do even 1 day of honest work in their own lives. I can relate to that. Sometimes, Fred muttered quietly. There was no need for it though, for the Admiral was clearly too absorbed with the idea of getting his drink, and his men cheered so loud that he could have as well shouted his thoughts out loud, and they would have remained private, much to dismay of everyone in the streets and surrounding buildings. Still, Fred was curious about this eccentric man, so he continued, "So, if you're not here to protect us from void fog, then from what?" "Arr, when I said protection, I meant it more in a sense of mercantile one. The southern seas may be a bit more dangerous than the northern ones, but that's what makes them profitable, especially because there's this island of cat people to the south that I've heard you lot like so much." "Right, but you said yourself that ghost ships won't attack our merchants, so..." "Aye, they won't, but the ghosts be no problem here, these damned federals be. They think they can just sail around and do business in Imperial waters without paying dividends to the nation that made these waves safe, so I be here to remind them that tribute is expected for our services." "Ah, so the fleet arrived here to be pirates." "Pirates? Who do you take me for, Governor? I am an honest-to-Emperor sailor, and I would never dream of flying the Jolly Roger as long as I live. It just so happens that His Majesty signed a few letters of marque a few months ago, and it would be a damn shame to let them come to waste, don't you think?" This was perhaps a good moment to say that being a corsair wasn't exactly all that different from being a pirate, but Fred ignored that opportunity, already thinking how his life would have gone if he joined the navy instead of the army. He probably wouldn't have met his deadlander wife, but then again he knew a lot of sailors hooked up for life with sirens from southern seas, so maybe it wouldn't have been that bad, except for the smell of fish. "Right, letters of marque," Fred finally said, shaking away pictures his imagination showed him. "Not piracy at all. I would assume you will need some infrastructure on the shore to keep things going, right? I can talk to my construction wizard and get things sorted in no time." "No need to rush, Governor. The longer you wait, the more time we'll have to drink and sing in your taverns. But yes, you could set up some proper watering holes in your docks. Being so far away from the sea makes me and me lads uneasy." "They don't look uneasy, Lord Admiral. They just can't wait for a drink. But never mind that. I'm sure we'll be working together in no time, so I'll help you set everything up. And, if you don't mind me asking, I've heard a bunch of rumors about you, sir. And is it true you're not actually from this world?" "Aye, that one be no exaggeration, Governor. Started my career in good old Commonwealth when they sent me to get a bunch of ships for their new republic or something like that. Couldn't find any in the Baltics, so I took a rowboat and went to Caribbean, where I knew there were tons of experienced sailors. Must have taken a wrong turn after crossing Danish Straits though, because I suddenly found myself rowing through the pond in the Imperial Palace. His Majesty was fishing back then and said he could sense my abilities, and here I am. Here I be. Yar! Well, His Majesty is known to have an eye for talent, and from what I've heard and read on the news, you certainly proved worthy of this instant promotion, sir. Ain't no thing, Governor. I'd just be doing me job. Shame that protecting every Imperial seal ain't leave so little time for my other hobbies, but what can you do? Ah, and there we are. If ye don't mind, we'll be dropping our anchor here, and until you get us proper port tavern near the shore, we'll also drop our press gangers here to get us some crew. Aye, aye, Captain. Admiral, Fred said, surprising himself when he realized he immediately liked this crazy sailor. I have to get back to business, but you enjoy your stay. That we will, Governor. That we will. Ah, I can already smell the Tava wenches from here. Oh, and since we mentioned him, I've heard the Emperor wants to visit this place himself in the coming years. I want to do the usual preparation for that, Governor. Now come on, lads. Let's show them how the crew of Captain Dobrosław Leśniewski parties. And with that, he entered one of the newly opened casinos where his men were already singing shanties while standing on the tables. Before Fred could even pick his jaw off the floor at this revelation, first Patron came flying out of the window and a drunken brawl began in earnest. Sailors, it seemed, never changed. Still, as odd as this meeting was, the important part was the news about Imperial visit. And indeed there was a lot to do if this place was to ever house His Majesty even for a few hours. But as Fred realized, their discovery of an active Saint brain could actually help with that. And then, with utter sense of dread, he also remembered that Comrade 4 was already there, probably ruining his plan in this very moment. So he jumped on the bike, fired a warning salvo in the air, and rushed to the northern extraction zone. He saw first signs of trouble almost as soon as he got to the highway. There was a large, ominous cloud of smoke and dust hanging over the extraction district. Granted, with all the industries there, a cloud of smog and pollution was a standard fare, but this one clearly indicated something larger. The sinkhole that a bunch of hapless miners uncovered, which made them fall directly into Saint's still functioning and sparking brain. It took a while for the mayor to arrive on the scene, and as he did, he could barely see a few meters ahead of him due to dust, but as he reached the edge of the sinkhole, he spotted some familiar shapes in the swirling smoke. Comrades 1, 3 and 5. They were busy discussing something, and surrounded by about a dozen of walkers and miners lying on the ground in various states of personal disarray. One look at them immediately told Fred what happened here. When you get punched by a 2.5-meter stone construct, you remain punched for quite a while, and some of these miners clearly met Comrade 3's fists more than once. It also helped that he was standing over some of the bodies, fervently apologizing for causing all of them troubles. Fred could only wonder why these walkers attacked one of his officials, but he had no time to think about it, for just as he approached, Comrade 1 spotted him and said,
"Ah, you're finally here, Mayor. I hope your meeting with Comrade 4 went well, but it seems we have a bit more serious situation on our hands now."
Yeah, I know. These poor buggers thought they were punching through rock, but ended up opening a hole right into the brain of a long-dead leviathan friend below. Judging by the reaction, though, it looks like it's not as dead as we thought.
"Oh, it is dead,"
Comrade 5 interceded, shaking a layer of dust from his skull and horns.
"Dead as dead can be. But as you can clearly see, these were rather large creatures, and while it no longer has any higher brain functions, its body is still operating on some low, primal level. It will keep at it as long as its neural connections work, and it will take them quite a while to wither. Makes it very hard for Ministry of Post-Mortem to actually categorize this thing."
I know these big bastards do that sometimes, but I'm still having a hard time imagining how this thing could still think after all these centuries.
As Comrade 5 said, it's mostly due to construction of its brain and nervous system. We are rather small when compared to it, and so our brains are mostly organic. But for an entity this large, it needs more conductive materials to carry electric impulses through its body. Materials like, for example, gold.
So that would explain why Comrade 4 was so interested in this thing, Fred realized.
Oh yes, him.
Comrade 1 almost spat out the word in disgust.
He actually arrived here around half an hour ago with his copies and went down to investigate the sinkhole.
"He did what?"
Doesn't he know that saints' emotions are so strong they affect people around them? Wait, they do? Fred asked, confused.
Yes, that they do. And I would assume he does know that. He saw these workers throwing themselves to attack us, clearly spurned by the Leviathan's thoughts.
Well, no wonder it's angry, we just cracked its skull open. Look, I know you don't like Thor, but you should have stopped him.
We tried, believe it or not, but he said he knew what he was doing and went down anyway, claiming that he needs to place some dampeners to prevent Saint's thoughts from affecting everyone in the city. We haven't heard any shouting from down there for quite a while now, so maybe he was successful.
Or maybe Thor and the workers just torn each other to shreds and there's no one left. We have to go down there and investigate and get this situation resolved before we all get furious.
It should be safe to just stay here. We've been standing here for quite a while and felt no effects of Saint's aggression. Besides, Mayor, how can you be sure you'll be able to go down there and retain control of your mind if everyone else lost it?
I've been in the Planewalkers, Fred reminded, as usual with a hint of pride in his voice. They trained us to resist any mental intrusions.
Not on such a scale, but I suppose you're right. We are responsible for this city, and our comrade from Ministry of Reality clearly failed at his job. So let's go down there and show him how it's done. Comrade 5, if you would be so kind.
The horned skull shook again, and a shimmering barrier surrounded the group. It wouldn't prevent Saint's thoughts from going through it, but it would at least give them a fighting chance. And with that, they went down into the dusty sinkhole, with Comrade 3 taking point as a walking cover.
There's something moving ahead of us. It's glistening,
the golem said a few minutes later, as they entered the very bottom of the sinkhole. The ground was weird and meaty as soil itself mixed with grey matter from the massive brain. And indeed, there was something just ahead of our brave investigators, or to be more precise, someone. Several someones. And these someones all wore identical golden suits. Suspecting trouble, Urbanization team prepared itself for the worst. Fred raised his pistol and lowered a tactical visor onto his eyes. Comrade 3 cracked its stony knuckles. Comrade 5 waved its bony arms in the air and materialized floating orbs of energy. "And what about you, Tentacles?" Fred asked.
It's Comrade 1, thank you very much,
Comrade 1 replied warily.
And no need to worry about me. I am a deep one after all. If any one of these shimmering ruffians will even look at me funny, I will hire them before they can blink.
Fred wanted to ask how exactly would that work, but some more movement ahead reminded him that it was neither time nor place for questions. He stepped from behind Comrade 3 and slowly approached the golden figures, far less glistening now, as they were all covered in sinkhole dust. But to his surprise, there was no aggressive response from them. They all just looked at the approaching group with wide, friendly smiles on their faces, and one of them stepped forward, on rather wobbly legs, and said,
Hey my dudes, nice to see you. Sorry for the noise before, we had some kinks to iron out. It's all fine and dandy now, just fine. Wanna get out from under that barrier and join us? I'm sure we could all share a smoke and talk about future or food or stuff.
This clearly was not something that the urbanization expedition expected, so Fred just shook his head and replied, "We'll stay here if you don't mind."
And would you button up your shirt, young man?
Comrade 1 interceded, his tentacles somehow blushing a little bit.
It's unsightly for a government official to run around with exposed chest.
Oh, yes. Sorry. It just suddenly got so hot in here and I had to cool myself off a bit.
Comrade 4 replied, trying and failing to figure out how buttons work. Then again, it has to be said that in all the dust, it was a bit difficult to even find golden buttons on his golden shirt. Still, I thought you would be busy trying to fix this place up with your dampeners, Fred continued. Or maybe seize it up for potential money-making opportunities. Didn't take you for someone who would just sit around and do nothing.
Oh, hush. Sometimes you just need to take things slow and look at the bigger picture with a sense of clarity, you know? The dampeners are there, if you want to take them and place them in the cave. But that would not be fun, wouldn't it?
Are you sure it's him, Comrade 5? Fred asked his Horn Adjutant. He hasn't mentioned money for at least 3 sentences now.
Yes, it is indeed our former friend, the Skull replied, and it's not like it takes a genius to figure out how to extract profits from this place. Thoughts of saints can affect surrounding people, so all you need to do is to get their golden neural system, extract these thoughts, distill them, and sell them out. Whatever the saint was feeling at the time, the buyer could feel 100 times stronger.
Wait, so you tell me those happy pills they sometimes sell in pharmacies are actual concentrated happiness? Fred asked. Comrade 5 simply nodded, so he continued. But still, that doesn't make sense. We thought this particular saint was angry. In fact, the furious walkers that attacked you were a proof of that. So why is our golden friend acting completely different?
Not just him,
Comrade 1 replied, and then pointed further into the sinkhole.
Look there are more miners, and they're clearly alive.
And indeed, here they were. A bunch of mine workers lying on the ground, all staring into the dust-clouded sky, sighing heavily with wide smiles on their faces. Something indeed must have changed, Fred thought, but he had no idea what it was. He turned around to the rest of the team and shared his thoughts, but after the next several minutes none of them could figure out what was the reason of this sudden change of mind. What, they all wondered, could suddenly change this saint's disposition from furious, mindless anger to peaceful bliss?
I'm conveniently left out of a single episode, and this happens.
The magical horse said, appearing from the cloud of dust.
Figures. Okay, let me start off by saying it's no wonder you can't figure it out. Honestly, I wouldn't expect anything else from a sausage fest like this. What you boys don't see here is that this big bugger is, in fact, a girl. I know, shocking, isn't it? She's long gone, sure, but what's left of her still got fucking pissed when you literally broke through her fucking skull, and she vented all that anger on your miners. But then, another bunch of miners on the other side of town managed to calm her the fuck down. Let me speak slowly so you can understand. She, a big girl, and this part here, that's her head, right? And it just so happens her other end is exactly where your oil extraction district is. I'm really sorry for raising my voice like this. It's just that I'm an 8-dimensional being and I still can't. Fred, seriously, how in the venerated name of Empress Victoria DA does anything in this society work?
You know the answer. It just works. And it still doesn't explain why she calmed down, Fred said.
I think it actually does,
Comrade 1 said, his eyes glowing with sudden realization.
If we are standing inside her skull, and the oil drills are on the other end, then...
Wait. Fred interceded, his eyes widening as well. Do you mean to say that she was angry, but then we literally drilled... Oh man, I did not see that one coming. Nice.
Nice,
Comrade 1 said.
Nice,
Comrade 5 said.
Nice,
Comrade 4 said, still fumbling with his shirt.
Nice.
What is nice?
Comrade 3 asked. Suddenly everyone jumped as if a bucket of freezing water was dumped on their heads. There it stood, 2.5 meters of pure rock-solid innocence, looking at his fellow citizens with utter confusion. Well, you see, Fred said, trying to salvage the situation. You know how Comrade 5 sometimes has to scratch his back on trees or walls because he can't reach there with his hands? We kinda just did something like that to the saint.
Oh, that is indeed very nice and kind of us.
Yes, it is. We should call someone in the old zone and thank them. They probably saved us a ton of trouble. We should call some services as well to sort this place out and get the miners and Comrade 4s out of here. But we'll be closing the mine after that. I like the idea of selling these emotions to people, but I feel it would bring more problems than it's worth. Just look at Comrade 4. By the Emperor, put your shirt back on, you golden bastard!
Imagine if it hit someone even 10 times stronger than it did him. Are you suggesting we should abandon middle way, Mayor? If we close this place, then that's a lot of money that won't go to our budget.
Yes, it's true. But hear me out. Someone said that these big bastards think across massive distances because they have this golden neuro thingamajig. And thoughts are basically electricity, right? So how about we simply drop a converter here and turn these thoughts and emotions into power for the city? Should be enough to keep us powered up for ages. Sure, we'd have to invest a bit into it, but it will be worth it.
I'm not sure how spending money on building and upkeep of a power plant can be more profitable than just selling these thoughts.
It won't be. But you see, I met with Lord Admiral himself earlier today, and he confirmed what you mentioned before, that His Majesty is planning to visit us soon. So now you see why we need that power? But by now, Fred might as well have been talking to a wall, because Comrade 1 simply lost consciousness. Comrade 5 shrieked and hid behind Comrade 3, who himself was vibrating, something rather difficult to do for a creature made entirely out of stone. But Fred couldn't blame them. Until now, he thought that rumors of Imperial visit were just mentioned to convince people to move here, but now that one of the most important people in the Empire confirmed them, there was no way around it. They had to prepare, and there was a ton of things to do if they didn't want to disappoint His Majesty. Granted, there were those who disappointed him, but as far as Fred knew, no one managed to do so more than once. And so he sighed with resignation, grabbed the still cold Comrade 1 by the collar, and started dragging him out of the sinkhole, already calling comrades in charge of Mr. Pernicle to bring the construction wizard along and set up a new saint-based power plant. But it was just a first step. His Majesty demanded more, so much more, and Fred looked at the situation objectively and reached one and only inevitable conclusion. There was no way to get everything done in time, so he would have to get creative.